Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, I am absolutely fascinated to dive into this one with you today because we're looking at what has to be one of the most complex, chilling, and enduring cold cases in modern history, the enigma of the Isdalen woman. We are going to unpack this 50-year-old mystery by looking directly at the facts, the data, and the incredible scientific breakthroughs that investigators have painstakingly pieced together over the decades. I mean, I love cases like this because they really challenge us to look closely at the evidence. So right off the bat, how do you completely erase a human life? I want you to really put yourself in this mindset for a second. Think about the sheer physical and psychological weight of scrubbing every single trace of your own existence before you die. We aren't just talking about, tossing a wallet into a river here. We are talking about the systematic, deliberate erasure of a human life from the historical record. How is that physically or even psychologically possible?
Section 1. The Discovery. A bizarre and meticulous crime scene.
The story kicks off on November 29, 1970. A hiker and his young daughters stumble upon a severely charred, completely unrecognizable body in Norway's treacherous ice valley. And the scene around her was just chillingly meticulous. Think about the items scattered there. An empty bottle of St. Halvard liqueur, an umbrella, rubber boots, and a fur hat that later tested positive for petrol. But the absolute most baffling detail, every single identifying mark, label, and tag on her clothing had been systematically cut or rubbed out. She was literally burned alive with soot deep in her lungs, clutching her hands tightly to her chest.
Now here's where it gets even more complicated. Carbon monoxide poisoning from the fire wasn't the only cause of death here. Her stomach contained a massive, staggering overdose of 50 to 70 phenobarbital sleeping pills. Remember those 12 pills found scattered next to her body at the scene? They were just a tiny fraction of what she had actually ingested, completely muddying the waters around her official cause of death.
Moving on to Section 2, the suitcase clues, codes, aliases, and disguises. Just 3 days after her discovery, police caught a major break. 2 abandoned suitcases were found at the Bergen railway station, and the contents were like a buried zinc coffin of clues. There was this unrelenting commitment to erasing any identifiable markings. I mean, even the labels on a prescription tube of eczema cream had been painstakingly scraped off. Inside, they found multiple wigs, non-prescription glasses with clear lenses, and 500 Deutschmarks sewn directly into the lining of the suitcase. But the biggest, most crucial find, a notebook filled entirely with handwritten codes. When police finally managed to decode that notepad, it blew the case wide open. The codes were actually encrypted sequences representing her exact travel dates across Europe. And by cross-referencing this with hotel registries, investigators discovered she was a polyglot who spoke German, Flemish, and broken English. She was a total master of disguise who constantly changed hotel rooms upon check-in. She used at least 8 fabricated aliases, names like Genevieve Lancier and Claudia Tielt, and was constantly giving out fake Belgian addresses. But when we track her final days, we hit this incredibly chilling blank spot. On November 23rd, she checked out of the Hotel Hortedun, paid her bill in cash, requested a taxi, and then just vanished. From November 24th right through the 28th, her whereabouts are entirely unknown. It's this eerie, missing window of time right before her charred body was discovered in Ice Valley on the 29th. So what does this all mean? Well, this is where it gets absolutely fascinating, because the exact same indisputable facts perfectly support 2 completely opposing theories. On one hand, you have the textbook profile of a highly trained Cold War spy, and on the other hand, you have the deeply tragic profile of an individual suffering from severe mental illness. We are going to look at both of these impartially. Theory 1. The Cold War spy. Military tests and international intrigue. You kind of have to contextualize this within the 1960s and 70s espionage landscape of Norway, where, honestly, unexplained disappearances near military installations were a known reality. The evidence for international tradecraft here is highly compelling. When military records were later declassified, it emerged that her encrypted travel movements aligned perfectly with top-secret tests of the Norwegian Penguin missile system. A fisherman explicitly reported seeing her near those military tests in Stavanger. Add to that her array of international passports, hidden currencies sewn into her bags, and multiple sightings by witnesses showing her with unknown male companions, and it looks exactly like intelligence work wrapped up in Cold War paranoia. And the spy theory gets even darker. A witness who saw her being followed by 2 men had his report intentionally left unrecorded by the authorities. When he pushed back, he was allegedly given this exact quote by the Bergen police in 1970. "Forget her. She's been seen to. The case won't ever be solved." This ties directly into a 2023 investigative report, which revealed that the Norwegian intelligence service actively interfered and suppressed witness leads at the time, possibly linking her broader network to a notorious Swiss banker with Nazi-allied connection. But we have to flip the coin here. Theory 2. Tragic mental illness, paranoia, deinstitutionalization, and sex work. Impartially pivoting and looking at those exact same facts, a totally different and frankly far more tragic lens emerges. The possibility of a severe, untreated psychotic break like schizophrenia or bipolar-induced mania. Think about it. If she was a spy, she was a very noticeable one. She constantly demanded room changes. She moved hotel furniture around. And staff recalled a strong garlic body odor or maybe an intense overapplication of Bergen perfume. From a mental health perspective, removing clothing labels and wearing wigs are frequent symptoms of intense paranoid delusions, where a person truly believes they are fleeing imaginary pursuers. Even the notepad code turned out to be a relatively simple shorthand, not some complex Soviet encryption. And that massive barbiturate overdose, that points heavily toward deep suicidal ideation, not a targeted assassination. To really understand how she could have been moving around Europe like this, we have to look at the socioeconomic context of the 1970s. This era saw a major wave of what's called deinstitutionalization, essentially releasing mentally ill patients into the community without adequate safety nets. This theory suggests she might have been a transient individual, perhaps engaging in high-class sex work to fund your travels, dealing with profound mental distress, and relying heavily on barbiturates for relief until she finally reached a tragic breaking point. Section 5. Modern Scientific Breakthroughs. DNA, Isotopes, and Podcasts. Okay, let's fast forward to today, as modern science finally starts talking back to this 50-year-old evidence. See, when the Isdalen woman was buried in 1971, she was placed in a zinc coffin by 16 Bergen police officers specifically to preserve her remains for future science. And that incredible foresight actually paid off. By 2017, investigators unburied her preserved jawbone from a forensic archive to conduct stable isotope analysis. This was quickly followed by modern genetic testing of her mitochondrial DNA group. And then, in 2018, the case reached a massive global audience through a BBC and NRK podcast called Death in Ice Valley, which crowdsourced brand new leads directly from the public. That isotopic analysis was an absolute game changer. By looking at the chemical traces left on her teeth while she was growing up, science was able to trace her childhood origins right to the French-German border, specifically around Nuremberg, Germany, right at the onset of World War II. Her estimated birth year was even narrowed down to around 1930. And these new findings perfectly matched the earlier handwriting analysis, which had already suggested a French education. The dental data was incredibly specific, too. She had a natural gap between her upper front teeth and an astonishing 14 root-filled teeth with multiple gold caps on her molars. That points to complex dentistry, likely from Central Europe, the Far East, or South America. Yet, even with all these hyper-specific details, in a 2019 claim from a French resident who actually recalled a summer romance with a Balkan-accented woman matching her description perfectly, her exact identity remains agonizingly just out of reach. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. Because, beneath all the wild spy theories, the hidden cache, the encrypted codes, and the forensic data, there was a real human being who took her true name to an unmarked grave. It really leaves us to reflect on the haunting reality that a human life could be so utterly consumed by time, deception, or mental illness. How many other ghosts are walking through our history books right now, completely undetected? Thank you so much for learning with me today, and as always, keep questioning what you see.